beeld kan ik misschien gebruiken. Ik ga hem gewoon lezen. Hoe heeft u het?
Nee. Good morning.
Good morning. Hoor je mij?
Ja.
Oké. Wat lees je?
Spiegelt. Kan ik niet.
Die raakt maar niet uitgelezen.
Nooit. Oké, even kijken.
Goedemorgen, Edwin.
Goedemorgen, Miguel. Alles goed?
Heel goed.
Nog steeds lange haren. Goed zo.
Oké, we gaan beginnen. 20 minuten en dan doen we WIP.
Ja.
Nee, ik moet hier hebben.
Moet je die hebben?
Tijd.
Ah, ja, dat kan wel. Zo. Goed.
Hoeveel eieren heb je gegeten?
Niet veel. 1,5 geloof ik.
Ja, nee. Ja, 1,5.
En jij? 0.
0, ja. Ik heb fruit met yoghurt en nootjes.
Grieks yoghurt, hè?
Wat?
Ben je klaar? Ben jij klaar met eten?
Ik ben klaar, kom aan.
Ja. Dan, wacht even. Ja, we gaan het nu hebben over... oh nee, het Engels natuurlijk. Yes. We're going to talk about love in relation to... from the Symposium, seen from a aquatic design perspective, in relation with law and duty and ethics. So, what we see in this Symposium, which is the major work on love in Western philosophy, what we see is, if we look at it from a distance, that it influenced the whole debate or the whole reflections on the phenomenon of love. First, of course, because it was a story where different people gave different proposals of their ideas about love. But secondly, that has also been written by Plato as a sort of proposal in itself. And finally, because it has been copied all over the world since then. You see in the Christian approach of love is completely entrenched in the Symposium approach. So there were, in the Renaissance in Florence, there were written stories about the Symposium in the Christian way, so to explain what love was, what corporal love was, what was the relation between seeing somebody's beautiful body and the divine love of God. And these all these relations and all these explanations were based on the Symposium approach. So the interesting thing is, if you look at it from a distance, is that millions or trillions of people, are living their most intimate relations in a story designed by Plato, if you agree on the story or not. And of course, also part of this whole, could say, evaluation of carnal love in Christianity was an ongoing debate started by the Symposium design. So one of the things which is also very remarkable is the whole place of homosexuality. If you see the completely ignorance of this phenomenon in the 18th and 19th century, and the awareness, the Renaissance, and during the time the Symposium was written, you can also see a very close relationship between the design we have of love and normality, of course. And what is normality is a very has on different layers a connection to how we exercise our erotic relationships. If you look at an historical point of view at the Symposium, then we see a period in which man-to-man relationships were absolutely normal, and there was no naming for it like we have now in our culture. Like we have the concept of homosexuality and heterosexuality. This was completely not the case. There were only names for different ways of engaging into all sorts of relations. Was it a homosexual or a heterosexual relationship? This is in itself a very interesting point, because you could say the prohibition of homosexuality or sodomy is one of the pillars of Christian morale in sexuality, and is one of, you could say, the most strongest forces in controlling people during the past 5 centuries. And Foucault has, of course, showed us this very well in his magnus opus, The History of Sexuality. So how to deal with homosexuality during the last 3,000 years gives us a very clear insight in how the relationship has to be regarded between such intimate things as erotical or sexual or love relationships and the law. And we see this discussion also in the Symposium, where they're talking about the law regarding to the relationship between elder and younger men. Also, the Phaedrus is talking about this phenomenon. But in the Christian interpretation of the Symposium, the whole homosexual aspect is, of course, completely evaded. But what is, yes, incorporated is the fact that the beauty of the body is just a reflection of the divine beauty connected to, of course, God. And so the love for God is, in the Platonic approach, a very efficient way for the Catholic Church to connect the most strongest passions of human beings to the divine. So, but there's also another explanation for the homosexuality in Greek, mentioned by later authors, and that was the degradation of women. So, because women were not considered equal to men, it was not very manhood, not very strong to have a sexual relationship with women. It was of a lower esteem. And that you see also in the Symposium reflected. So if we take the story of then, we have to reconsider how people lived and how people validated different rituals. And if you see that the position of the women is substantially lower than the position of the men, then you see that homosexuality is not a choice, but is a necessary phenomenon if we want to have love to be between wise people, which is also the subject of Symposium. So then the sociological part of love is also very important to regard in any interpretation of it. But of course, we can go into depth in all these aspects, but what is very important is all these different factors: the sociological one, the historical one, the law aspects, the juridical aspects, and the moral aspect, all come together into a design of what love can be, of how it will be exercised by human beings. And this is of course very strongly reflected in the work of René Girard, when we see that the way we love is completely dependent on the model we choose. So the question is, does the Symposium has this awareness of the relativistic design of love, of the possibility of designing love according to whatever image we choose? And as we saw the last time, due to the fact that we have several stories there, that we have an open debate on which could be the correct story, the answer is yes, the Symposium is a reflection of this awareness, because we see people talking about this most human biological, or this most human, you could say, evolutionarily forces that is at work in every micro situation. So then the question is, can we do this again? Can we again start a new debate on how love should be considered? Now we see this debate the past 40 years going on, where people talking about the monogamy, or people talking about heterosexuality, homosexuality, and even now people talking about transgender identities. We see also, due to technology and immense increasing of the possibility to design their own love stories, and I mean by love stories, to design their own way of building their love landscape. So some people will say, I am a serial monogamous person. I would say I am I'm an erotical person. Other would say I am still a bigamist, or I'm a celibate sexual person. Whatever, you see a complete diversity of philosophies emerging in the past 14 years on how and what. But what is the interesting thing is that in the symposium we try to approach this question from intelligent questions. So we start asking ourselves, what is it, what is the goal, and what is the best way to do it? And that debate is not yet realized in our culture, because in our culture it's fragmented. It's all, or it's centered about the men-women question. Are women free, or are women recognized, or have women the same rights? So it's it's a juridical approach, or we see a psychological approach in which we see the matter of personal health. Is it beneficiary for people to have multiple sexual relationships, or it's about the physical health, where we talk about AIDS and that sort of stuff. When the question is that completely free encounters can lead to spread of bacterial and viral diseases. But you could say the ontological question from what is it, how should we do it, and can we realize it, is completely out of the horizon. And that makes it a challenging, interesting approach to do that. Of course, with Socratic design, because Socratic design is the awareness that you can make a new narrative about this. So we can make a new narrative about what is the best way to organize our life. But why is it necessary to have an ongoing dialogue about this? Because it's not a individual matter. That's what we can see in all these reflections on love. It's a matter related to the customs and the rituals of a community on this or that place in this or that period. So you cannot isolate yourself or a person from the whole sociological, anthropological, cultural context and say this is now the best way to practice your love, ambitions. We can only realize such a good design when we consider all aspects of humanity in this. So that means that we have to think about what is truthfulness, what is law, what do we consider moral, acceptable or desirable, and what is our theory of aesthetics. And this is, of course, in a culture of relativism, in a culture where everybody can decide for himself what you can think of anything, or what you can have sort of moral ideologies. In relativistic culture, everybody can decide for himself. But this is exactly the point where a culture of erotical, you could say, success is not possible when everybody wants to invent it in his atomic circle around his physical center. And so we can only, and this is what history teaches us, probably we are in a big fallacy if we think that we are autonomous entities which can just act, because you act, everything you act in your system, inside your neurological system, and in the outside of your neurological system is all regulated by the rituals and the convictions and the conventions and the laws you were raised in, but also your parents and your grandparents else. So you cannot leave the eco regulations out. You cannot leave the ecology of mind and feelings out. All these build-ups make you you. So if you want to reflect on yourself, you have to do it together with the people who build up your culture on that in that period, on that area of our planet. So it's basically a philosophical, artistic, anthropological project. So how could we reach that? Well, we can only reach that when we approach this from a total perspective. And when we have to think, what is a good person? We have to ask the question, what is a good society? We have to ask the question, what is reality? And how can we decide what we really want? So the core question, of course, because love touches the essence where everybody is aiming at all his life. It's about looking for somebody you love. Basically, everybody is every day busy finding somebody else to love. So it's quite essential to think about this. And one of the essential things is, what is the biological necessity? How does that can be translated into a cultural phenomenon? So how does the biological interfere with the psychological and the cultural things that we are? And so, for instance, if you look at the subject of homosexuality, which are a beautiful spectrum of films and literature about this, the suppression of homosexual feelings, it will not be possible, biologically speaking. So a lot of people have committed suicide or went into deep psychological trauma since due to the elimination of the homosexual feelings. So that's just one example. Another example is the man-women relation has a very strong biological component. So that's in every culture recognizable. So and so on and so on. But you have to think about what are the elements of beauty, aesthetics, and emotions related to a model of, you could say, beneficiary, satisfactory love practices. And we have a lot of artists who try to give us an answer. And the basic thing is that it should not only be art, it should be integrated in art and philosophy. So that's what we're going to investigate next time. Okay.
Great.
Questions? Yeah. Do you have any of the students a question? Anybody has a question?
I don't.
Oh, he doesn't have a question. Well, that's good. Well, I have just one question, but I asked him, how do you do this? How can you find this? I think we have first to reflect on what are all the elements. So we will, coming session, reflect on that, and then maybe we will find and define a way to do this. But it must be integrating practices, collective intelligence, and aesthetic, artistic experiments. So that's it. Oké. Moet ik nou hier detoneren, Amy?
Ja, dat is goed.
Rood. Oké, dan kan ik met.
Hola.
Hola.